Key 1. Stoic. In today's world, there's no shortage of bad advice floating around, often coming from people who aren't exactly the best examples to follow. One of the things the Stoics emphasized was the importance of being able to separate good advice from bad advice, just like a money changer knows how to spot a counterfeit coin. Epictetus suggested that we need to develop a sharp eye for recognizing whether the advice we receive is genuine and worthy of following. So, how do we separate the good from the bad? First, ask yourself, do I respect this person? Is this someone I admire and want to learn from? Do they truly understand what they're talking about? If everyone followed this advice, what kind of world would it create? These are the types of questions we should ask ourselves when sifting through the flood of opinions. And in this post, we're going to explore some of the worst advice out there and see how Stoic philosophy would guide us toward a better way of thinking and living. This kind of advice often sounds like it's encouraging us to be confident, but when you dig deeper, it promotes arrogance. Stoicism teaches that the biggest roadblock to true knowledge is ego. In fact, the Stoics saw conceit as one of the most detrimental traits, especially among young people, because it keeps them from learning and growing. Epictetus famously said, "It's impossible to learn what you think you already know." It's easy to confuse confidence with ego, but the two are fundamentally different. Confidence is about understanding your strengths and limitations, while ego inflates your sense of self-importance. When we're consumed by ego, we stop being open to feedback, and we close ourselves off from growth. Look at the example of someone like Marcus Aurelius, whose meditations were essentially a way for him to constantly check his own ego and remind himself to stay grounded. Despite being an emperor with immense power and influence, he fought to stay humble, reminding himself that true greatness comes not from external recognition, but from living according to wisdom, virtue, and reality. Contrast that with figures like Donald Trump, whose ego has led him through a career full of failures, scandals, and personal strife. His ego has made things more difficult for him, turning what could have been successful ventures into a series of painful missteps. Sure, he may have gained attention or even power, but at what cost? The Stoics would argue that this inflated ego is far from a path to true success. Humility, on the other hand, is a trait we should all strive for, not as a weakness, but as a foundation for continual growth. Great leaders like George Marshall, who helped guide the United States through World War II, were known for their humility. Marshall was always more focused on the mission than on his personal interests. It's this type of humility that the Stoics admired, the ability to serve others and to recognize the need for self-awareness. There's a popular notion that success is all about working yourself into the ground, about pushing through exhaustion and constantly hustling. While hard work is undeniably important, the Stoics understood that sustainability was just as vital. The famous saying from Emperor Augustus, "Festina lente, make haste slowly," captures this perfectly. It's not about working nonstop until you burn out. True progress comes from balance. The Stoics believed that if you don't take care of yourself, eventually, the consequences will catch up with you. Arianna Huffington's wake-up call came when she collapsed from exhaustion during her time building the Huffington Post. She realized that though hard work had helped her succeed, it was also wearing her down to the point of physical collapse. This is a real danger, as we've seen with people like Elon Musk, who pushes himself so hard that his health and judgment are now deteriorating. We may look at these figures and think that their extreme hustle is the key to success, but the Stoics would remind us that a life built on imbalance and neglect isn't truly successful. As Seneca put it, the mind that is not given over to relaxation breaks, just as the anvil breaks the hammer. We can't keep pushing ourselves beyond our limits without eventually paying the price. Sustainable progress comes when we learn to slow down, conserve our energy, and focus on what really matters. This isn't about abandoning hard work. It's about working smart and recognizing when our bodies and minds need rest. This kind of harmful advice, which disregards the real, lived experiences of people suffering from mental health challenges, shows a fundamental misunderstanding of human suffering. Some people equate Stoicism with being emotionally invulnerable, but this is a misunderstanding. Stoicism teaches us to manage our emotions, not to suppress or deny them. It doesn't call for emotional repression, but for the cultivation of inner peace, resilience, and rational responses to life's difficulties. The Stoics believed in acknowledging reality as it is, not pretending that everything is fine when it's not. Acknowledging pain, struggle, or mental health challenges is essential to addressing them. It's about responding to these difficulties with wisdom and courage, not by pretending they don't exist. The Stoics give us a clear guide for navigating through the bad advice that often floods our lives. They remind us to stay humble, to prioritize sustainable effort over mindless hustle, and to always remain open to learning. The ego is not the path to success. True wisdom comes from recognizing our limits, staying grounded in reality, and putting in the hard, mindful work that leads to lasting growth. When we separate the wheat from the chaff, we can live more intentionally and create a life aligned with our values, free from the noise of unhelpful advice. Key one to Stoic: all heard people make light of struggles they don't fully understand, dismissing real pain with comments like "just toughen up" or "stop faking it." But those who speak like this often lack empathy, or worse, haven't faced challenges of their own. The idea that philosophy can solve all of life's issues, or that people struggling with mental health simply need to snap out of it, is not only misguided, it's harmful. True understanding comes when we listen, not judge. Reading novels, memoirs, or the personal experiences of others allows us to see through their eyes. It helps us understand what someone might be going through, especially when it comes to conditions like depression. When you hear someone describe the crushing weight of it, the last thing you do is question them. You listen, you empathize, and you offer support because, when it comes down to it, you could easily be in their shoes. This is one of the lessons we learn from figures like Marcus Aurelius. In his meditations, he reflects on his own suffering, not just from physical ailments, but from emotional and mental struggles too. Marcus wasn't immune to life's difficulties. He had plenty of reasons to despair, yet he still found a way to get out of bed and face the day. His internal debate about doing so in Book 5 of Meditations shows just how deeply he struggled, yet he found ways to keep going. We all face moments when life feels unbearable, but that doesn't mean we should dismiss those who are hurting. Sure, there are basic practices we can all adopt to take better care of ourselves, routines that many people overlook, but let's not forget that some people are going through things that are far beyond our comprehension. It's essential that we remain sensitive to that. Susan Cain's book Bittersweet introduces the idea of melancholy as a source of depth and even greatness. Some of the most impactful people in history, like Abraham Lincoln, lived with profound sadness. Lincoln struggled with depression to the point where his friends were worried he might harm himself. But despite the deep pain, he pushed through. His friends didn't call him weak or pretend his pain wasn't real. They supported him, helping him navigate through the darkness. That's what real support looks like. We need to remember that struggles, especially mental health struggles, are complex, and it's never as simple as just getting over it. We need empathy. When people open up about their struggles, whether with depression or anything else, we need to be there for them, not belittle them, not invalidate their feelings. Stoicism, at its core, isn't about harsh judgment of others or pushing people to just deal with it. It's about understanding and self-discipline. It's about seeing the bigger picture, appreciating what others are going through, and applying that same compassion to ourselves. Stoic wisdom encourages us to be patient, to try not to be easily offended, and to treat others with kindness, especially when they're struggling. It's not about being tough or pretending nothing affects us. It's about emotional resilience and a willingness to understand others. Take, for example, the idea of emotional intelligence. Stoicism teaches us that we should seek to understand before seeking to be understood. It's about reflecting on our actions and their impact on others. This doesn't mean we never challenge people or push back against ideas, but we should do so in ways that are constructive, not hurtful. Unfortunately, There's a dangerous trend of using social platforms and public statements to tear people down rather than uplift them. Individuals who lash out or deliberately offend others in the name of being real or being tough are missing the mark. It's one thing to express your truth, but it's another to be cruel or dismissive just for the sake of it. That's not what Stoicism is about. In fact, Stoics understood the importance of kindness, not just to others but to themselves as well. It's about maintaining respect for others, regardless of their background or struggles. As Bezos's grandfather wisely told him, it's easier to be clever than it is to be kind. Sometimes, the truth can be delivered without causing harm. It's all in the approach. In this age of anti-woke culture and online polarization, we must remember that being clever or provocative doesn't make you a better person. The real strength lies in understanding, kindness, and empathy. Stoicism encourages us to be resilient, not by harshly judging others, but by choosing to respond with wisdom and compassion, both to ourselves and to those around us. On a side note, this idea of self-discipline extends into everyday life, like how we take care of our bodies. It's one thing to hustle and push ourselves, but it's another to truly optimize for well-being. Sleep is a prime example. We may think it's enough to just sleep whenever, but if we care about our mental and physical health, we have to be intentional about our rest, whether it's the right mattress or the right sleep environment. Finally, while Stoicism encourages us to focus on our own growth and self-mastery, it's important to recognize that some challenges require more than self-discipline. Mental health conditions like depression and PTSD sometimes need more than philosophical reflection. They may require medical intervention. And while some may argue that psychedelics offer a way out, it's crucial that we approach these topics with caution. What's important is that we respect the boundaries between personal growth and professional care. After all, unearned wisdom can be as dangerous as unregulated treatments. In the end, true strength comes not from avoiding hardship, but from facing it with a heart full of empathy and a mind rooted in wisdom. Let's remember that kindness to ourselves and others is the ultimate form of resilience. Key 1.Stoic recently, I revisited the electric Kool-Aid acid test, and something about it really stood out. The chaotic energy, the flamboyance, the almost unshakable certainty of those involved. It felt eerily similar to what we witness today at modern gatherings like Burning Man. The spectacle, the larger-than-life personalities, and the intense energy of those moments all mirrored each other. Of course, while some individuals are genuinely working toward something profound in these spaces, there are others whose voices carry no real weight. And that gray area between the two is where things often blur. Joan Didion once said, "Living in the world takes work." She argued that we must continually strip away illusions, clear our vision, and shed the distractions that obscure our understanding of the world. But here's the catch. Wisdom isn't something you can just download overnight. It's not something you get from popping a pill or immersing yourself in some trendy experience. It's earned, cultivated through years of introspection, reading, and self-reflection. It's the result of deliberate effort, not a quick weekend retreat that promises instant enlightenment. This idea of instant wisdom is something we should all be cautious about. Sure, psychedelics can lead to fascinating insights, but let's be real. Many of these revelations are basic truths, things that have been written about in ancient philosophical and religious texts. The desire to shortcut this deep, sometimes difficult, process is tempting, but ultimately, it misses the point. If psychedelics work for you, then that's great. But expecting them to solve all your problems or provide a quick fix to life's complexities is a misconception. Here's a thought. If these substances are so transformative, why do people keep returning to them over and over? Why is there this desperate push to convince others to try them? It's an interesting puzzle, isn't it? Then there's the timeless piece of advice we hear all the time. Follow your passion. It's meant well, but it can also be dangerously simplistic. The Stoics would probably have some reservations about it. Passion, while powerful, can sometimes cloud judgment. Some of the greatest mistakes in history were made by passionate individuals who were too blinded by their emotions to see the consequences of their actions. Take Christopher McCandless, for instance. His passionate desire to live in the wild ultimately led to his downfall because he ignored the practical realities involved in such an endeavor. Even the legendary Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, when asked to sum up his iconic coach, John Wooden, did so in one word: dispassionate. We often associate great leadership with energy and fervor, but the best leaders know how to channel energy without being overwhelmed by it. Passion can be an impulsive, erratic force, useful for igniting action, but not for sustaining it with clarity and discipline. Instead of blindly pursuing passion, I think it's wiser to focus on what you're truly good at. True fulfillment comes from finding the intersection between your strengths, what the world needs, and what excites you. If you're only passionate about something for your own benefit, it can easily turn inward, becoming self-serving rather than world-serving. For example, I love writing about Stoicism, but if I were the only one interested in it, that would be a poor career choice. The sweet spot lies in aligning your skills with what the world truly needs. Passion, on its own, won't take you far, but when paired with competence, maturity, and rational thinking, it can become a powerful force. History shows us how easily passion can lead to disaster. Just look at people like Napoleon or even George W. Bush. Driven by their passions, they led others into dangerous, often disastrous paths because they couldn't see the clear, obvious truths before them. This doesn't mean passion is inherently bad. It absolutely has a place. But we must prioritize what we contribute to the world, not just what it does for us personally. True fulfillment comes not from indulging in excitement, but from creating something meaningful for others. And now, a word about the current trend of rejecting structured routines. Some are advocating against morning routines, arguing they box us in. But I believe this advice misses the mark. Having a morning routine isn't about rigidly following a fixed plan. It's about setting yourself up for success by eliminating decision fatigue. It's about choosing how you start your day, and doing so with intention and focus. As William James once said, constant decision-making can be draining. A morning routine removes some of that cognitive load, helping you begin your day on the right foot. Twyla Tharp, the famous choreographer, described how her day starts with the first step of her morning routine: coffee, getting into a cab, and preparing for her day. That's where it all begins, and it sets the tone for the rest of her day. Without a morning routine, the day often slips into procrastination and distractions. But if you get up early, focus on the essential tasks, and reflect for a moment, you've already won half the battle. The Stoics emphasize the power of habit. What you do regularly shapes who you become. By starting your day with intention, you establish the mindset for everything that follows. Marcus Aurelius himself acknowledged this struggle. When waking up, he reminded himself that he was born to work and contribute to the world. The resistance to leaving the comfort of bed is always there, but it's our choice whether to give in or overcome it. So, don't be fooled into thinking you can just wing it. Establishing a morning routine is a game changer for your productivity, mental clarity, and overall success. It's not about being rigid, but about setting a solid foundation for the day ahead.